What up, everybody? It's your boy, Pyro Slays Music, and today I'm going to take you through what, in my opinion, were the worst and best albums of January 2025. Let's get into it. We got some stinkers to start off with. Busta Rhymes, Dragon Season, The Awakening. This is an EP. The rapping, the lyrical content, honestly, the worst I've ever heard from Busta Rhymes. This was awful. So corny. Was not good. Was not good. Next on this list of bad albums, we have Lil Baby's Wham. This was just so over-bloated. I'm not personally a huge fan of Lil Baby to start with. However, there are a few songs that I actually don't really mind by him, but this style does get away from me a little bit. Like, it's not my favorite thing, especially considering that I don't like repetitive lyrics, and there's a lot of that here. And it just really doesn't have the same flow that a lot of rap used to have for me. So this one was just way over bloated, and sound-wise, I didn't really enjoy it. Next, we have Bilk. Essex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. I'll be honest, guys, this might be the worst album. This probably should be ranked the worst album. This entire thing was the corniest thing I have ever heard. It was generic. The writing was incredibly shitty. Like, I mean, on another level of bad. We have a very good example of, like, trying to talk like I'm a bad boy and maybe trying to come off like old school rock and roll-ish, but with the sound they chose, it comes off super cringy and like, look at me, I'm a naughty boy. I'm a naughty little boy. Like, no, it's bad. It's really bad. Don't listen to that album. Not good. Atariwept, life-ruining lesbian bluegrass. Listen, it's not just ruining the lives of lesbians, also straight heterosexual people like myself. Oof. Listen, I can understand where people are coming from when they say they enjoy this, but this is very hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to even describe this genre, but let's just say it's not for me, but I was curious and I had to check it out. Next on the list for bad albums, we have Moonchild's Sanelly. She put out a Afro Beats project, and while I didn't mind the subject matter, I'm not a prude by any means. This is very sex positive lyrically, and the main problem I had was it just didn't flow well. The production sounded off. Vocally, there just wasn't any substance. Very, very disappointed with this one. Next, we have Smoke Dope 2016. Come on, guys. I actually might get some shit for this because this one was really highly rated, and I heard a lot of talk about this in a lot of different circles. Not mine, though. This is like emo rap is kind of coming to this area where it's like, I think this is considered cloud rap. So it's very atmospheric. The instrumental is rather... Like, the instrumental is not bad for a rap track. It's just lyrically, this got really old. It was like, you know, middle school cringy. It was It was okay. Not my thing. This pile of dung. Kane Brown, The High Road. Guys, this is awful. This is just straight awful. This is modern country at its worst. Like, Kane Brown used to have kind of a cool mix. Like, he had this, like, very R&B-esque country that was unique. And he has fully thrown himself in with just the generic dog shit sounding country that hasn't changed in the last 15 years. Awful. Really bad album. Not good. Stars Fading Out Quietly. This is an EP, much like the life-ruining lesbian bluegrass. But this one is heavy and also very DIY. This was too much for me. I didn't really enjoy the sound at all, but I could, like, I don't know. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. And the final, oh no, excuse me, we have two more. This album by Jesse Ahern, Mercy. Normally this dude puts out some solid sounding stuff. Kind of has like a folk rock vibe with maybe a punk rock background. And this album was just filled with very, very mid tracks. The folk didn't come out enough. It just felt like 1,000 other projects we've heard before. Nothing really unique popped here. The writing wasn't all that good. Again, the stuff we've heard on this, it just didn't do much for me. And finally, we have Paleface Swiss Cursed, which I already did a review on, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But it wasn't good. Let's just put it that way. Lyrically, this was incredibly cringy. Sound-wise, they experimented in all the wrong way. Excuse me. It was not good. And that is my top 10 worst albums of the year. Let's get into the best of January. Jesus, I can't talk. Of January. Let's get into the good stuff, shall we? Lua Trilogy and Supercollider put out this EP, Sunbelt Princess. Now, I don't know if this is considered an album or an EP, but either way, it's included here. Very unique. Had some really cool vocal samples from like movies, that kind of thing, which typically I hate. Loki. Sorry, my dog is digging at stuff. Which typically I kind of hate, but this was really done well. This is like, I didn't expect to enjoy this as much as I did. I've come back to this several times, given it several listens. It's a very unique sound. The first 3 songs on this album are 10 minutes long flat, and then we have a radio edit of Emerald Eyes. So technically, this is only a 3-song. I'm gonna call it an EP. Regardless, it is pretty cool if you're not picky with like kind of, I want to say like emo, but also like pop music. The drums are just sexy in this. They're so nice, so well done. So I enjoyed this. It was very chill, very experimental, very cool. Then we had the Halo Effect, March of the Unheard. And while I don't think this is the best album I've ever heard metal-wise, I think out of what we heard in January, this definitely deserves to be in the top 10. Lyrically, it is a bit shallow, but man, it definitely has a really nice sound, like a nice, heavy, mellow death sound. Really good. I like the vocals. It almost had more, like their screams had a lot more epic metal or power metal screams rather than your typical metalcore. And then instrumentally, there was quite a bit of a metalcore vibe to this, or maybe like a deathcore. I don't really know. Not deathcore. It wasn't that heavy. But no, this is regardless a solid album. Even if it does have some low points, it's really enjoyable. Next, we have Asian Glow, which I believe is Binary Code. The album title is Binary Code, and I'm not sure what it stands for. Regardless, this was a really cool project. Emo, you have some chamber pop. Like it's a very interesting mix, and here the drums are just solid. If you need something to get, like, you're trying to get focused while you're doing something, throw this album on, and I guarantee that it will help you get your project done. Like, it just has a really good flow. Real nice. Then we have Gumshoes, which is a new one that I have just now discovering. Bugs Forever. This album was a lot of fun. It's piano rock. So it kind of reminded me of like a Billy Joel, maybe with a bit of pop, a little bit more pop vibe added into it. Regardless, such a fun listen, like throughout. Me, the wife, and the kids have listened to this several times over. Lyrically, it's amusing. There's even some like lines in here that really slap, especially in this song, Cockroach Song. I might be doing a review for this, so I'll have to come back to it. But yeah, no, very, very interesting. If you're into piano rock or that Billy Joel sound at all, definitely worth checking out. Then we have the Lambrini Girls with Who Let the Dogs Out. I did a review for this, so we don't need to stick around too much. You can go to the review if you're curious of what I felt with this. Regardless, it was in the top 10 albums for me in January. This one just had a really nice garage punk vibe, and I like the satirical nature of this. I've seen this a very divisive album, though. Either people love it or hate it, regardless. Now we have Mac Miller's Ballonerism, R.I.P. to Mac. This is somebody I fell in love with, like, musically towards the end of his career before he passed. And I was sad that I didn't really get to be in on the excitement while he was alive. So I'm just now kind of going back and discovering a lot of his music. I followed like Kids back in the day. And then the album that had Loud on it. And that was pretty much where I stopped listening to Mac Miller. Came back to him, like I said, maybe a year before he died. That last album he put out was really good. And this is just more of that. I do think it was a little bloated as a whole. But again, this is kind of to be expected with a posthumous album, where you're getting a lot of his experimental stuff as well kind of put in here. I think the production was done really well. Mac sounds good. It sounds just like something he would have put together. Very happy with this. And now we have a really shocking one. Like, I am shocked that this one grew on me as much as it did. This was just a ball of fun. If you're into Devo or the B-52s, this is what at least in my head, what I would imagine if you were to combine the two. This is what you have. A punk rock band that sounds a bit like Devo mixed with the B-52s. And they have a really interesting narrative and like way they like the lyrical content. It comes off as super like childish in certain ways. And then my wife and I were talking about it. I got her into this album, and then I got my kids into this album. There's just like a lot of stuff in here that's like adult, but it's worded in a clever way to avoid cursing. That being said, there's still some inappropriate stuff in here. Don't get me wrong, so don't go out letting your kids listen to this. Make sure you listen to some of the tracks on here first before you get in there. Debbie Harry is a good example of that. Regardless, though, this was a lot of fun. Some of the narratives were like almost like what a child's book narrator would sound like. Kind of the cadence. I don't know how to put it, dude. It was wild. This was such a fun album, though. Like, I really enjoyed this vibe. I think everybody should check this out if you want a good laugh. If you want something a little more eccentric, this is where you're gonna want to go right here. Okay, good shit. Now we have the Weeknd. Weeknd put out "Hurry Up Tomorrow," and I have been on and off with the Weeknd's music. Kind of got swept up with the hype of this one. This is possibly his final project as the Weeknd. And I've been, in the winter months, I do feel a lot of that R&B vibe. I do enjoy that. It's either super heavy metal or R&B. And this is a crazy long album. Like, so long. It took me the first time listening to this, I had to listen to the first half in a day and then the second half in a day. Not in the whole day, but like I had to split it up. And then I've listened to it several times since, totally. And I am shocked. I am the first person that will bitch about bloated albums. And don't get me wrong, it is a little bloated. But the Weeknd did so well with the writing on this album. I was blown away. The writing in this album is fantastic. I've honestly gotten so much from it. This is going to be one that's probably going to be, I'll be listening to all year. Shocked again that in a mainstream album hit me in this sort of way. Like, I really enjoyed this album. I think if you at all enjoy the Weeknd's music, or you don't mind a little R&B hip hop style, you're in the mood for something a little bit more experimental, this is where you're going to want to go for the Weeknd's music. I think this is more experimental than most of the stuff I've heard from him. And I really, really enjoyed this. Again, there are plenty of fluff tracks on it, but it doesn't hold this album back from being great. Then we have Stick to Your Guns, which put out a banger of an album called Keep Planting Flowers. Golly, we needed this. Lyrically, this is kind of the, listen, I don't even know. There's so many different lines of reasoning here, because you have keep planting flowers, we'll all die anyways, more than a witness, kind of encouraging you to do better in society and stand for your beliefs. It's just a really nice album. Now, I've heard that this is considered really generic, and if that is the case, so be it. But lyrically, this is something I needed in this first month of the year. Kind of give me a little uplifting, you know what I mean? A little bit of anger for some of the stuff that's going on politically that I'm not a huge fan of. But this is, in my opinion, a really solid album to stick to your guns. I enjoyed the wonkiness of it. I enjoyed that the album had some tracks on it that were really short and then longer. So sometimes it felt a little unbalanced, but I kind of enjoyed that. And I thought it kind of added to the DIY feel that they sort of go for a little bit. But yeah, I'm very impressed nonetheless. Very solid, hardcore, metalcore album. Finally, my final album of the 10 best albums of January. The great old ones, Kadath. This one shocked the hell out of me. I believe it's considered black end metal or black metal. I'm not really sure. Let me pull up. I don't really know. All I know is Lovecraft was the inspiration here, and I am a sucker for Lovecraftian horror. Sucker for it. But this is a French band, and they knocked my freaking socks off. I don't like black metal. I don't typically listen to this style of music, but it hit really nicely. And I mean, guys, we're talking long tracks. Starts with a 10-minute. Track number 2 is 9. 3 is 7. Track number 4 is 8 minutes. We have a 1-minute song, which swings into a 15-minute song, ending on a 9-minute song, essentially. Unreal that they kept me interested through this whole listen. This is an hour and 1 minute long run. I thought for sure that I would hate this. I randomly threw it on, fell in love with it. If you're into heavier music, I really suggest you give this a listen through. Even if you're like, hey, I don't like long songs, throw this on in the background. But warning, it is a heavy ass album. Now, that is my top 10 and bottom 10 albums of January. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. What albums are you most excited for coming up in March and February, for that matter? Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this video and what I could do better. Hit that like if you would like to support me. And until next time, y'all, it's Pyro Slays Music.